But let's go from fire to fire. We're heading from Christchurch to Hawke's Bay. Fire crews and helicopters carrying monsoon buckets there too have contained a large blaze that ripped through parts of rural Hawke's Bay. The largest fire, which was one of 5 in almost 24 hours in the region, very dry there too, of course, razed a house and burnt through 130 hectares of pine trees and pasture. Our reporter Eva Corlett was there.
Helicopters have been scooping buckets of water from the river since first light this morning and will continue dampening hot spots in the Waimarama Hills until it's dark. The smell of smouldering earth and the sight of blackened vegetation is stark against the gold pasture, but residents are slowly being allowed back to their homes. 60 firefighters are at the now contained scene where a fire broke out yesterday morning. The Fire Services Area Commander Trevor Bullock says the team is keeping a vigilant eye on expected wind changes.
We'll be keeping a minute-by-minute eye on this wind because we've had all week of the wind, 40 plus k's, so it's just starting to come up now. So we're not resting on our laurels, but we've got a defensible space, so we're quite happy with what we've got.
More than 130 hectares were charred, including 40 hectares of pine forest. Some sheep were also singed in the heat. But Mr Bullock says he is happy with the efforts so far.
We've got it contained, and so now it's just a matter of keeping it in the box. It hasn't escaped anywhere overnight, and we've got dead, burnt right up to our brakes right around, so really happy with that.
Mr Bullock says it's possible power lines blowing in the wind caused a spark that ignited the fire. Farmer Bruno Chambers, whose property is adjacent to the damaged area, says the winds yesterday were gusting up to 70 kilometres an hour.
The fire moved into the pine trees and that became explosive with all the resin and associated dry matter within the forestries. That ignited huge fireballs that were quite fantastic to watch, but quite alarming as well.
Mr Chambers, whose family has owned a large portion of land in the region since the 1950s, says he is seeing more and more fires.
Real tinderbox conditions in the bay at the moment, and combined with the predominance of westerly winds that have both dried the country out alarmingly and also been a fan for fires that have started, we've got a real issue on our hands, and there will be a lot more. I mean, it's going to be a really difficult time for the firefighters coming up.
Civil Defence Controller Craig Cameron says a state of emergency was called because the fire services were stretched across the region and additional resources were needed.
We may never have done this before in the district, certainly not in the last 15 years. So it is a rare situation for us. It's quite rare to have this combination of factors, which is essentially drought conditions, extreme wind conditions and extreme heat. Normally the winds have started sort of diminishing by February, March, so it's that perfect storm of factors.
Mr Cameron says the state of emergency declaration will be reviewed tomorrow. Tukituki Road is now open to residents, but won't be open to public until further notice. In Hawke's Bay, ko Eva Corlett, Tēnei.